the story of the flood, which actually wasn't a happy time, you know. The reason why we were so badly destroyed is because we lived right on the river. And my husband called at 7 o'clock, well, it started raining the night before, and I got up several times during the night, and I checked, and the river seemed to be okay, and I said, oh, you know, this is going to be no different than any other flood we've ever had. And I stayed where I was, and John called at 7 in the morning. He said, you got to get out of there. So I drove the car up to the end of the driveway, and when I did, the river was still, it was about this deep, you know. So I'm thinking, I'm still okay. And then I looked out, and I could see my top steps, and I said, oh, that's okay, you know, it's still cool. And then the firemen came down. They said, you got to get out of here. And I said, why? And they said, because it's really bad, you know, it's going to get even worse. So I said, oh, okay, but I can still see the top steps. And one of the firemen is actually a girl, and I coached her in softball, and she said, Margo, you need to leave. And she was like panicked. I mean, her eyes were huge. And I said, okay, Gidget. And I handed her my dogs, and I said, you take one. I had 3. You take one, I'll take one. And one of the other firemen took the third one. And I stepped on the front step, and I went right up to here in water. I didn't realize they were floating. You know, I just had, and if I'd looked at the firemen, I'd have known it, because they were up to here in water. You know, and then my dog panicked. The minute the step went out from underneath him, he panicked and he sank, and we had to get him. We got out of there, and I drove out of town. In the meantime, my husband's looking for me, and he comes down into town past our cabin that we owned, and he gets not very far, and they turned him around, and he's driving out to Morrisville, and he said, where would she go? And he thought, Hillary's. Well, my pee-wee brain didn't register that it was only 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 by that time. So they weren't open. I tried the door. It was locked. So I went in through the hotel and down the ramp into the restaurant, and the guy, and Alan met me, and he said, we're not open. I said, oh dear, like that, and the bartender came around. Her name is Cindy, and she said, Margo, what's the problem? I said, we just lost our house to the flood, and I had to swim out with the dogs, and I'm soaking wet, and I need a cup of coffee. No, he said, well, go sit down and get your cup of coffee. I said, you don't want me sitting, I'm soaking wet. And the worst part of it was that all the water that came into our house came right straight through the blown sewer plant. So anytime anybody flushed the toilet in Johnson, it came into our living room. You know, it was just, yeah. So that's the condensed version.